Yikes. Okay, man. The pre-show always is a great way to set it, but we can't talk about whatever. All right. So, hey, great show plan for today. Learning new things about my co-host all the time. So anyway, we got no less controversial of a topic today. There's a big headline that's been floating around the last 24 hours alleging that Substack is a Nazi platform. If you're you probably clicked on the fun little thumbnail that Jacob made for this to see.
I thought it was vaguely.
It's not just some random person in the blogosphere. This is the co-host of New York Times's daily tech podcast.
New York Times. Yeah, I believe everything they say.
So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Bitcoin ETF. It's supposedly, moments away from being announced officially. We're going to talk about AI as always, specifically effective altruism and concerns about how AIs learn, and a whole new crop of crypto felons being manufactured. We'll talk about how you can join that wave. I am joined by Frank Kushner and Jim Durbin today, and we're going to talk about all these things and more. Stay tuned. Okay, so nice lightweight topic to start off with.
I thought you were going to talk about the aliens in Miami. So it's very clear that you don't want to talk about the aliens in Miami.
My check cleared this month, so I am part of the grand media conspiracy that will deny that exists, I guess. I don't know what's going on in Miami.
I don't know, but there was some altercation at a mall. And then because instead of like 5 or 6, they said it was teenagers fighting, but there's like 100 cop cars backed up, and then people are saying that there's 7-foot-tall gray aliens walking through the mall, and there's no pictures from it. So they're like, "Why are there no pictures from it? I mean, why aren't the kids fighting or something like that?" And so
I read the wrong news.
I was early.
Or something. My stuff's not anywhere near that. I don't know about you. You're watching Bloomberg over there like a schlub. Me, I don't know what I'm reading, but not that.
Maybe I fell asleep early last night. Maybe Netflix pushed me to some weird anime thing I didn't know was happening.
Totally, it was whatever like sleeping pill you took, and you woke up in the middle of the day.
Good exercise and a healthy life. That's what I had as my sleeping pill, Mr. Kushner.
So anyway, this is the thing that Casey Newton from Platformer is talking about. Basically, parts of it are true. He's talking about, I wouldn't say parts of it. There's the true things. I think the conclusions are what maybe quibbled over. They are not deplatforming people who are essentially editorialists for the Daily Stormer. Not like dog whistle people, but people are actually like white supremacists and pro-Nazi. The question is, can a piece like a social media service like Substack, which if you're not familiar with is a blogging platform that's geared towards email newsletters, can it be thought of as truly neutral infrastructure, or is it inherently, is all social infrastructure inherently opinionated? Do you have to have an opinion on content moderation to run one of these things? That's kind of the question here. Mm-hmm. I actually maybe surprisingly to those at the table here fall on this is not neutral infrastructure side of the argument because of some recent changes that Substack has made to the platform. But I'm curious, you use Substack not extensively, but like you use it for a couple of things in your business. What your opinion is, Jim? Do you have any thoughts on this?
We've been making this argument for a long time. Are they responsible for what's in the network? When is it censoring? When is it free speech?
Right.
When you drive people away, they go to the deeper and deeper corners. So I think it's still as tough as it's always been. I always get nervous when someone starts saying, well, this company is this, because to me, that feels like an activist trying to be. So I don't know. Is it like 6 guys and they're just making something up? Or is it serious? I just don't take the activists serious anymore.
Well, so it's not that they're 6 guys and they're making something up. These are people that are known to have been deplatformed elsewhere, known to have promoted explicitly Nazi type content. And they are monetizing their content to the extent that they are got that little top performer badge or whatever from Substack. So you know they're making more than $1,000 a year or something like that.
I mean, 20, 30 yeuld ago, I probably would have agreed with it. Now I'm like, okay, so who else is getting tossed off? Because what happens is that these guys may be bad guys, but the next thing you know, it's, oh, wait a minute, you voted for the Republican Party. We're deplatforming. Because we've seen that happen over and over, where all of a sudden someone is formerly a Glenn Greenwald, Elon Musk. These aren't conservatives, and yet people are like, look at these right-wing Nazis. Basically, you just can't ever give in to the outrage mob. They're making it worse by bringing the attention to it.
Yeah, I think that for me, that I use Substack to follow what other people that are on Substack have read. Like I curate my news based on some of the people that I follow and what they read this week, right? And for me, it is just another platform for me to get information and gather data that other people have curated. Yeah. So obviously we don't run Substack in that company, so we can't really talk to what they're going to do, but I don't think they should give in. This is just another outlet for information, and I think it's, you know, a very good outlet for information, and we hope that they would like to keep everybody on there because, you know, much like the Howard Stern thing years and years ago, for those of you who actually know who he is, Howard Stern thing years ago was like, you know, I listened to him not because I agree with him, because I want to see what he's saying, so I have ammunition for the next conversation. Right. And then the people that didn't like it or that did like him listened because they liked the conversation and the information. So you need to know where people are and where they stand. And, you know, having that out there gives us an opportunity to see what their conversations are about. Because if we believe in free speech and truth is out there, then you're going to make your own decision, right? Based on the information that you have.
When Substack.
Oh, and by the way, let's be clear. We know that it's not black or white. They're still going to kick people off, you know.
Yeah, so calling for violence.
And they probably should.
Full on.
Yeah.
Of course, I assume you're.
But it has to be for, you know, some reasonable reason, I guess.
So it's at one point Substack was just a newsletter platform, and then they decided when Elon Musk started faltering with Twitter/X that they were going to add a timeline component, and basically they've got a Twitter clone built into the platform now. So it is more than just a newsletter platform and a blogging platform. It's something else that is trying to create its own social networking gravity, which is why I think it falls away from the neutral tooling argument that they're trying to make for themselves. Right. The one of the bits of discourse I saw was the Nazis did not commit the only atrocity in history, but a platform that declines to remove their supporters is telling you something important about itself. They do moderate other types of content that is legally protected speech. They just don't seem to be moderating Nazi content. And it's a puzzling decision because it's a weird hill you want to die. Why would you die on that hill?
Yeah, what else are they?
I mean, they'll moderate leftist extremist content, like Antifa type stuff.
That becomes a little stranger. It seems the opposite. No, I mean that's no question. The 230, right?
The government will take care of it.
Well, it's like.
Stuff is hard too.
You either do no moderation or you do, you know, like culturally sensitive moderation. Like you can't really pick a middle ground where you're gonna like pick and choose winners if you're gonna moderate content. You know, like there is a report this, you know, post function and stuff does sometimes get taken down, but people aren't.
I'm sure it's brigaded and potted the way other people have it too.
But why even have it if you're going to, you know, it's a bizarre choice.
So imagine this: some guy starts writing on Substack. He uses ChatGPT to do it, except for it's not him; it's a fake. And what the person does is those recommendations you get after you subscribe. Oh, here's the 3 newsletters this person wants you to read. You make them those Daily Stormer guys, and now we know.
Right.
Put it in. I'm surprised more of that stuff isn't happening. It's like, who was telling that joke yesterday? David Spade was talking about, it was the early days of Twitter. He's on the Norm Show or something. He's making some comment about it. He made some comment about a supermodel, and then she DMs him and follows him. So she mentions something, and he ends up hey, we're going to this party in Hollywood or something like that. So he shows up and his friends are like, go talk to her. And he walks over and says, pretty funny stuff on Twitter. She goes, what? Pretty funny stuff on Twitter. She goes, what's a Twitter? He got catfished.
That's awesome.
Well, it's like the Cat Williams Dave Chappelle thing we were talking about a couple weeks ago.
Oh, what is Cat doing, man?
I don't know what's going on with that.
I'm seeing all these things that he's either sharing all the secrets of Hollywood or he's turning a little Kanye. I can't tell which direction, but he's flat on going after Rogan, going after Steve Harvey.
Interesting. Yeah, I've seen his name,
trying
but
to find his relevance back again. I don't know.
I mean, I don't think we could say it on a family program, but I've seen some clips that had me just what?
Awkward.
Now I'm curious.
How'd the four of you get on the set? What did you have to do? Because I know what they asked me to do to get on set.
Wow.
It's like, wow.
Okay.
Oh, good times.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, I love Substack. I have Substack, but like, I think they have some questionable choices, and it's going to be this is going to be a difficult road for them to navigate. I predict that they're probably going to cave.
I imagine so. I mean, it's a hard thing to defend.
It's very similar to, I remember writing a series of editorials about Google at Mashable back in like 08, 09. Because remember Orkut, their early social network, they were, back in those days, Google was they wouldn't respond to law enforcement data requests.
I remember that.
Yeah. The hill that they were choosing to die on with Orkut was they were not responding to the Brazilian government's request for data around their users to try to break up a pedophilia ring that was known to have entrenched itself within Orkut. And my editorials were like, really, like, maybe if you're going to make any exception to this policy, this is the one. This is not you're not going to win any. You're not going to win any fans. Yeah. Right. So like this, for Substack, I think my advice has to be similar. Sure, free speech, great, but maybe not this hill. You know, not going to work out for you. But anyway, moving on. Right. Unless you got more to add to that.
No, it's kind of boring.
It's kind of hard to take the
opposite side of that for so long.
You know,
Jim, do you call things you don't like to hear boring? Is that what that?
No, it's just we've had this argument for so long about what is the responsibility of are these utilities? What should we do? What is free speech? And the problem is no one studied free speech. And they don't get that it was the idea of free speech was pushed to stop blasphemy laws. Oh, it's a founding corner of what we have. It's in the First Amendment. I'm like, just go back and look at what it was. We've got this weird, who's an absolutist? It used to be liberals, classical liberals were free speech absolutists. And then in the 80s, this conservatives started taking that over for the fairness doctrine. And it just gets old after a while.
I agree with you.
I bored myself right there, man.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
So reminds me
if you're still
time.
Oh, go ahead.
Stop it. Just one time at band camp,
I was younger and I was talking to a girl and she was 6 or 7 years young. I was like 28, 29. She was 21, 22. And I just sat there and remember thinking, my God, I just bored myself. And so it's like, I'm talking to her. And so I just stopped and said, you poor child. And I turned her around and pushed her away like you pushed a toddler. Go, you're free now. I'm so sorry. It was bad for me. I can't imagine how much worse it was for you. Like releasing her into the wild.
All right.
I don't know why that popped up.
If you stuck it out through that discourse, we've got some not financial advice for you coming up next. So the Fidelity and the other spot Bitcoin ETF issuers are saying that it's going to be announced probably sometime today. Like this is the rumor is that like while
they said Fidelity already has they've all started putting the points on 0.39, 0.59.
Yeah, their management fees. And it's actually quite spectacular because that really is going to drive there's so many people that are on the sidelines waiting for some big player to come in. And, you take a look at GBTC's trading at more or less, I think it's about a 6% discount to, hoping on the heels of this thing passing. Now, to be clear, the discount was as high as the 20s, not too long ago, 28, 29%.
Much higher than that
discount,
during the big dip too.
And what happens in financial markets when you see, there's start closing in, you got to close that gap, and that's what's happening. And so I think it's more likely than not. But as I heard yesterday on Bloomberg as well, they did say that they could push it. They could always just push it.
There was one piece of contrarian rumor this week that it was going to get pushed like another quarter or something,
like March or something. Yeah.
But everyone else seems to be fairly certain that we're going to at least hear something today, and that the thing that we're going to hear is the approval. The question is, and this is where the NFA little disclaimer comes in, is everything priced in? And before you answer that, I don't want it to be like a gotcha. BlackRock is saying they are still going to seed and haven't purchased the Bitcoin yet, but they are going to seed their ETF with $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know. I doubt they're going to just hit market buy or anything, but that could move the market theoretically.
So I think this is the beginning. I'm going to answer it a different way. I'm going to say that I think this is a beginning to a race to the bottom of the transaction fees. And you're going to see a lot of the companies that were standard brokerages.
And you mean by that the ETF transaction fees?
I mean,
right?
Not the
ETF
Bitcoin
transaction fees.
Really for that too, right? Because the dumb money, the people that are actually buying and selling Bitcoin on Coinbase versus, we have all these different platforms that if you were going to buy these types of things, not that I am telling anyone to buy or sell anything when it comes to this, but ultimately it's not cheap, right? You've got, unless you have a really deep data pool, you're buying, a coin at a time, 10 coins at a time. It's not like you're buying, if I want to buy $10 million worth of GBT or Bitcoin, you're going to buy it all over the place. There's no deep liquidity for it. With these ETFs, you're going to start seeing that liquidity, and 39 basis points is worth every penny for me to have somebody else handling the back office of it, and me having exposure to that asset that somebody else can't steal from me. That's on them now, right? And 39 basis points, which for everyone else, it's like 30, but basically 0.4%. It's not a lot. No. And it makes it a much more attractive alternative to trying to figure out how to create your own wallet and not get it lost.
You know who gets, at least if they're doing rack rate, who gets about a quarter of those basis points is Coinbase, because Coinbase is the liquidity provider of choice on record for most of these filings.
Right. And you will see places like, Sailors, places like, MicroStrategy, and you'll see a lot of these people that have these assets that create some type of hypothecation agreement that will allow people to borrow or use theirs as collateral for a fee, which is what you were talking about.
Speaking of which, Michael Saylor, on the week, to your point, he just sold almost a $250,000 worth of MicroStrategy shares so he could buy more Bitcoin in advance of this week's news.
Hey, if it's working for you, right? Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to do that thing where I flash back to 6 years earlier so that I can remind myself. And that's when I remembered that I had 300 Bitcoin here on my phone.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to.
What I remember is not even that long ago when the state regulator who was coming in and doing an audit to our brokerage firm asked my founding partners to tell me to sell GBTC and ETHE because they were uncomfortable with it as a security. And I had to do it. When I say had to, soft had to, right? I chose to do it because I didn't want the Eye of Sauron on me.
You could have taken the route that I took.
Yeah, how'd that
just
work
said
out?
Whatever you want.
Head south, young
You'd
man.
have a lot more Bitcoin, but you might have had a place to stay for a year.
Frank loves saving money. So.
It's true. 3 meals and a cot. It's pretty good. I don't have to pay for my overhead and some meals.
I'm not sure a little light on the meals.
Yeah. Talking about
So
food shortages.
I just think that it's really interesting that really think about it this way for those people that do have a substantial amount of crypto held up in these institutions like Fidelity, who's been mining their own crypto for a long time. To them, they create their own liquidity pool, right? And they allow
there's not going to be enough liquidity.
The investor base, they have more than probably most of the others, they've been mining Bitcoin since the beginning. Abby Johnson had one underneath her desk.
Really?
Yeah, for years, like just a little data server that she was doing. I was happened to be lucky enough to be at an event where Yuri and Timmer was there, and he told me the story about how it was so loud and whiny, and they were just like, Abby's mining, So I don't know if you know this, but they're a private company that has a lot of technology, and they probably had a lot of extra capacity. Why not mine? So who knows how much they have? And maybe they're going to do it themselves, right? But if not, for all those people that do have substantial amounts of crypto, in the particular ETF type crypto, you're going to have a new way to make money. It's like that staking. It's basically you say, okay, you can play with my money and you have to pay me for that. And that's what Coinbase is doing. I guarantee that end users have the ability, kind of like Interactive Broker, where if you have your own position in Microsoft, a concentrated position, and you want to allow them to loan it out and make money on it, they'll share that with you.
I mean, this is one of the things when I was deep into OTC that I used to do, especially for overseas large purchases, is you would pool together liquidity of large OTC guys. I was the second biggest guy in Dallas in terms of transaction volume, but sometimes these international guys in like Hong Kong or China were like, the stuff that would in those towns would pale in comparison, or I would pale in comparison to what they were doing. So we would get like, a few guys that were big OTC, we pull it together to provide liquidity for a large cash transaction. We did one for Carlos Slim one time. A couple of guys,
billionaire owner of the New York Times and telecommunication in Mexico.
Right. Yeah. He also bought CompUSA when I worked there.
Really?
Back in the 90s.
You were Chuck? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
I actually worked for IBM that worked for CompUSA at the time, but like it was just, my check came from Hal Compton and Carlos Slim. So
yeah, it's secondary effects is you've got a lot of these proprietary shops out there that were working between Europe and America. I'm an investor in one company called Blockvilles, and they're a specialty trading desk, and they allow institutions to trade through their liquidity pool. And you'll see companies like that getting bought because they have specific insight into now an institutional market with institutional connections to those liquidity providers. So you'll see some consolidation in those markets as well for the ones who survived.
Yeah.
Right? Because we can look at a lot of them that didn't.
I mean, some of the best ones didn't too. Like there were the one that's Gary Silber's company, Genesis Bitcoin.
Genesis, that's the one I was thinking about. Yeah,
I've used every OTC tool out there, and it's such a shame what's happened to them because Genesis was the best kit glove experience. I mean, I could do an ad for them, but I won't.
It was a good counsel for the Sega too.
Yeah, absolutely. You are correct. Yeah.
And it was a piece of technology on a Star Trek.
I mean, it's not a bad book of the Bible either if we're going to get down to all the other things.
I wouldn't want to bring, come on, I'm just trying to stay.
I prefer the beginning.
Yeah.
But so this the thing that fascinates me, all this ETF are going, but then your next story has got to be the going to jail for selling 10K or whatever it is.
Oh yeah.
What is going on with that? Because you can trade futures, but you can't trade physical Bitcoin. Is that what they're?
So no, this is completely different. This is just bad tax law that has been carried forward for like almost 100 years now.
This reminds me of the AMT conundrum that we had several years ago. All they did, go, please.
So
alternative minimum tax.
in 1930 something, I'd have to find the exact link. I think it's on the second Twitter link that I've got in the show notes. But in 1930 something, there was a law that was introduced that had to do with trying to track like money laundering with regard to World War II or World War I or something like that. Here we go. 1945. I was wrong. 1945 is when it was introduced. $10,000 in 1945 is equivalent to about $175,000 in 2023. So it made kind of some sense there that you're trying to track some war profiteers. They just never changed the number since 1945. And now because
it wasn't relevant, right? There was probably no need for it or anyone even paid attention to it at the time. But now they're using it as a weapon, right?
Well, they have been since 9/11, right?
Mhm.
Specifically because it's part of the BSA. And it's been carried over from this particular law into BSA, KYC, AML rules. And so they have added a guideline that says if you receive over $10,000 worth of cryptocurrency and do not report it within 15 days, you will be a felon, which is kind of like an extension of what I went to prison over. Not quite exactly the same thing. It basically takes it outside the realm of people that are money transmitters and applies it to the whole population evenly. Now, here's what's additionally particularly interesting about this. There's a small but growing movement of people on Twitter that are trying to figure out a way to manufacture a bunch of felons. Here's the pathway that they're going to do it. You can send somebody crypto against their will via email using a specific series of tools. You can create a token that's worth $10,000 by temporarily injecting liquidity into a DeFi platform. And then you can then send a token via email to, let's say, Secretary of the Treasury or President Biden. And they will not report it because it's going to look like spam to them or some other random thing. And then you report them to the FBI as a felon who did not report, and you report them to the IRS. And I don't think it's going to work, but technically you've manufactured a whole new wave of felons. This is the activism that's currently happening around this. I mean, I think it's going to work as well as my personal defense against the allegations that worked when it came to peer-to-peer Bitcoin trading, but we'll see what happens.
It sounds like just another tool that is in the toolkit of additional crimes for big players. So it's just something they could probably add on.
Something to throw. Well, it's not that hard to do. I mean, at that point, what's it, a quarter of a Bitcoin?
Yeah.
What happens if it goes up to far more and people are just trading a tiny portion of it? It doesn't take long for that to be. That's a big deal.
If you even if you consolidate outputs, or if you send yourself Bitcoin and don't report it, you could fall.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. What do you do when it's an exchange and you don't even know who you're buying it from?
Well, I mean, how would they know if you're sending it from yourself to your LLC?
You self-report.
Right, but if you don't self-report,
well, I just gave you a bridge to the next
one.
One.
Oh yeah. Okay, so you did you have talked to your lawyer or talked to a lawyer this week about the whole the beneficial owner self-reporting with FinCEN stuff this week. You were mentioning that earlier.
Yeah. So I received an email from an estate planning attorney, a very, very good estate planning attorney in New York City. And it was just, it was a reminder for all the people out here that don't know about this regulation. But do you happen to have it in front of you what it was called?
Beneficial owner reporting with FinCEN.
So with FinCEN, and what it says is basically, if you are the beneficial owner of a corporate account, whether it be a disregarded LLC or a corporation, S Corp, C Corp, whatever, if you own it, they want to know who you are. And they rolled this out pretty shoddily. And so now this attorney sent out an email saying, by the way, we're helping our clients through this. Feel free to give us a call. So, of course, I reached out to my accountant, who happens to be an attorney as well. And I mentioned to him, you should do this for your clients and charge them for it, right? Because I'm always helping people make money for their own practices.
Right.
And his response was, I hope they push, this is going to be a disaster. I'm already trying to deal with it. And this is a mess. And my reply was, this is really going to screw up estate planning pretty good too. And he said, don't I know it? So it's like, literally, this is a mess. It's like,
what is a potential way that it could screw up estate planning? Because I don't quite understand, but I would be interested to hear
So in theory, you create it. And by the way, all of these things that I'm talking about, talk to your tax advisor, talk to your attorney. I'm not here to give specific advice, but in theory, if you're a small business owner, let's say that you have a small business that you know is going to succeed, you want the most flexibility in it, and so maybe you put it into what's known as a disregarded entity, like an LLC, right? It's not in my personal name. It's not Frank Kushner, because Frank Kushner doesn't get great tax breaks, right? XYZ company that Frank Kushner owns, an LLC, has better tax breaks, right? Because everything that I actually spend for advertising, everything I spend for entertainment, meals, things like that,
Right.
I could write off. As an individual, it's not as cut and dry. So you may create an LLC or an S corp or a C corp to do business.
Mhm.
And even though you are the only employee and the only employer, and like you are the owner of the company, it is specifically separate and distinct from me as a person, right? Estate planning wise, if you have all those incidents of ownership, and I guarantee they're going to say that you do at that point, if you're 100% owner of this company, then you have incidents of ownership. That's not only drug back into your estate, but like for an LLC, you've got layering. If it did happen to pop like Roblox, you have certain rules that talk about liquidity. And if you've got, so it's just, I believe it's going to try to create a way and a wedge for the IRS to say that the incidents of ownership mean that there's no liquidity issues. And so we're not going to get a discount on what the value of that company is. And it's just going to create a huge mess.
So, and this is going to be one of the, it's almost a rhetorical question, but like, most other countries, when it comes to the IRS, they don't like make you guess how much you owe. They just kind of like you fill out a form and they tell you or whatever, because, they have the same computers that we have. They just don't want to push the buttons for you. And
by the way, they will. You can actually, if you haven't filed your taxes in quite a while, they will. You can call them up and say, hey, can you send me a transcript of my tax records? And they'll show you what they've reported for you.
Interesting. Yeah. So, well,
that seems like a trap.
Yeah.
Have your attorney do it.
Ask?
Have your accountant do it.
Ask?
Well,
why did you not know?
The question I have then is, and maybe it's rhetorical or maybe there's actual answer to this. Why can't they just ask the states where you filed the LLC to show all the beneficial owners? Because that's mostly in the paperwork. I mean, I've built companies before, and you have to put all the people above a certain shareholder.
And there's a couple states that you can't see that, but most of them you can look at right up.
But if you're the feds, I feel like that's something the information you could probably get from them if you asked.
Look at the fight. If you asked, I don't think so. States' rights versus federal rights. What's the point of filing in any particular state?
Delaware is going to let you dig into their stuff.
I mean, look, as my lawyer repeatedly expressed to me throughout the course of my case, the Fed supersedes the states, and the feds get to do whatever they want.
That is something they say a lot, but that doesn't mean it actually happens.
Well, maybe you and my lawyer could have gotten together and figured out a strategy to get me out of prison then, because like the state of Texas said I was compliant, and the feds said I wasn't. Again, like this, I mean, all that stuff is in a computer at the state level. Like, why are they allowed to say you have to tell us what the state has in their computer over there, but they're not allowed to say, hey, Delaware, give me that information?
Why is it that sales managers, when faced with a tough quarter, want people to sit down and do training a couple hours a day and then report on all they've done at the beginning and ending of the day, cutting half the time out of the salespeople, but it makes the sales manager look like they're doing something? That's the essential function of these bureaucrats. They're just doing what they've done before. Here's something new. That's it. It's not thought out. It's defended.
I don't know. It just feels,
I mean, dumb.
I think it would be, I mean, from a federal government side, I mean, this is probably why they did that, is so that they could try to take away states' right. It's going to be interesting. I wonder if the states will fight back on this.
I think it was the laziness thing you brought up before. They didn't want to ask the states. Now they're doing it. Now you're in trouble if you didn't. Well, you should have filled this out.
You've got states like South Dakota and Delaware and several states that are very, very specific in their definitions and their in protecting companies.
New Mexico, where it's very easy to buy a ghost LLC that someone else built, transferred over, now you got a new company.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's one of the things that they're built on.
Yeah, Wyoming. You say Wyoming already? Yeah.
Why do you want a domicile in that specific? Where do you want your domicile of your insurance company? Where do you want your domicile
like
for
big
specific
skies,
things?
Chinese.
Yeah, freedom.
All right, well.
America.
They call it Merc out there? I don't know what they call it in Wyoming.
Oh,
should watch this season of Fargo. It's all about that.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It looked like it was an interesting one.
It's good so far. I don't know. We're close to the end. I'll let you know how it ends.
I don't have a TV. I just hate it when people say that. I don't really watch TV. Like they let you go on, and like I don't really watch TV.
Yeah.
And it was always when you're picking something stupid, like, oh yeah, I was just watching this one, and this girl says this, and like, I don't watch TV.
I just had who hasn't had a flashback to someone that actually said that after you built the clock and
right.
I don't watch this.
Oh boy. All right. So AI. Let's talk about that. We haven't talked about that much this week. There's two stories that were kind of related, interesting to me, that caught my attention over the course of the week. One of them is, let's see. Yeah, so this is kind of an extension. This is a new kind of AI copy can replicate famous people. The law is powerless. I mean, it's Politico, so it's going to be a little bit clickbaity. I don't think the law is powerless or the law necessarily has anything to do with this, but it's very much along the same lines of the whole uproar that artists are in, that an AI is able to ape any type of artist style before
what was that strike about then? If they haven't fixed it, what was that strike about?
Oh, well, that was
why did they make it so long for me to watch Reacher? I just want to know. I mean, look.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, now
we learn a lot about our co-hosts. Sometimes before the show, sometimes during.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Side note, I have read most of his books. I like Lee Child, and when they made Tom Cruise Jack Reacher,
really
and that I was not happy. I was like, Jack Reacher's a 6'5" monster, and you've got this guy. We all know how big he is.
There was a viral social media post this week, was like just kind of lampooning Reacher. He's like, oh no, what's going to happen with Jack Reacher this week? Will these 4 5-foot bikers be able to overpower this man who's a beast of a mountain of a person? Anyway,
did you see the actor who did that came up and said he was bullied in high school, and just recently that same bully came up and asked for a signature?
What did he do? Okay, here you go.
You don't remember?
That's great.
Anyway, I think this goes to like an offline conversation you and I had, because you and I have been talking about whether or not
Meat Space,
the whether AI can be considered sentient or human or have a soul or any of these things that we're kind of anthropomorphizing.
Wasn't that Ex Machina?
So because the question becomes, and this is why I think it's very important to see how Sam Altman has positioned what ChatGPT is doing. He, in congressional hearings and public statements, it says the goal of the company is to create AGI, is to create a sentient, self-directing machine. And if that is a thing that exists in the world, you cannot get upset when that thing impersonates another. Do you get upset when a comedian impersonates, Donald Trump on stage? Do you get upset?
Every Christopher Walken joke ever.
Do you get upset when an art student tries to mimic Van Gogh's style? No, you can't, because that is part of the humanistic way we learn, is we imitate others that are bigger and better than ourselves. On the other hand, if you take a effective altruist approach to this, it doesn't matter. And this is the other competing, AI safety ideology that's around this thing, is that it doesn't matter. These things are going to kill us all. We must stop it by any means possible, even if that means redefining things as not human or not sentient when they maybe are. So I don't know. It's the whole big ball of wax that's going on, and like just a very tangled topic that's going on this week and being discussed from a lot of angles. Have you guys read any of this discourse this week?
I've heard about it, read some of it, and all I can say is that I just hope this happens in like 40 years, because I just need to live out the rest of mine. Whatever happens, happens.
I got bad news for you. It's going to happen like next week, I think.
I know, that's what I'm worried about. What happened to all my retirement planning? It goes to zero. Sentient. I'll just take that.
I haven't seen deep into the really, really good stuff that's occurring, obviously, and what I'm seeing it is amazing to watch. But then you pop into Dolly and it gives an eye thing like that. I'm not seeing what other people are saying, and for me, the very definition of sentience It's not good enough if it fakes it. The question is it a living, thinking being? I don't see how it's going to go that way. I think that we're a lot further away than they're saying. I think we're going to be fooled by it. I think people are going to make terrible decisions the same way boomers always did, which is, I don't have to worry about this. I'll have this cheeseburger because medical science will fix me by the time I get old. I think that's exactly what AGI is going to run into. I think it's obviously going to get better. I don't think it's get better fast enough to fix the problems we have in front of us.
Well, what do you mean by that? We'll fix the problem we have, like fix the world or
energy,
whatever?
population, crashing birth rates.
I'm not even talking about that.
Drones. There's lots of stuff that's all.
I'm not even talking about fixing the big problems. I'm talking about maybe that's a second or third order discussion. The question is whether or not we can even consider it human at this point, because that affects dramatically how it can be regulated. It's already dicey when you start regulating software in the first place, right? Code is speech, right? But when code becomes a life,
more than speech,
now we're in true, Star Trek. Like it's like 1,000 episodes.
I'm in
of
my
Star Trek
car
about this.
driving down 75, and I've got a laptop that's jacked into the grid, and it's got an AI inside of it. Does that mean I can do the HOV? If someone runs into me and they're drunk and I die, and the AI loses its power source and dies, that 2 murders? Is that where you're prepared to go?
I
know. Why am I running around with an AI? I'm a cool guy. I know lots of stuff other people don't know.
Well, there you go.
But that would have to be too. If it's a person, then murder's definitely unplugging something becomes accidental, not manslaughter, person slaughter, or entity slaughter, or whatever we're going to call it.
Well, look,
from
what I understand, that everyone knows about these aliens, and it's really, really deep secrets in the U.S. government. They'll do the same thing. They'll find the AI, and then they won't just tell us about it. They'll just keep running things as is. We won't know.
Why is it the aliens always seem so dumb too? Like the AIs are always smart and like figuring stuff and launching nuclear missiles and shutting the lights off for you at the wrong time, but the aliens are just crashing into stuff randomly, and they don't have like, I know not to step into a pool like the ocean without putting a swimsuit on. These guys don't know how to come to a planet, and it didn't make any sense.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe we're just in the wrong end of the galaxy on the wrong side of the tracks. That's why they keep crashing.
We're bad aliens.
Yeah. So, Hill, can you get me a tinfoil hat, please?
They don't even have that. It's got to be aluminum, but they don't make the aluminum. Where are you going to get the 10? They don't make tin foil anymore.
Back to the point on the effective altruism versus the effective accelerationism. I think that there's 2 things happening, right? So one, there is the fact that we have software that is better than humans at most things that it's doing now. It's got better judgment. It can drive a car with a less kill rate than even as bad as it is. Right. Mm-hmm. Like there's the state of California is really upset with these self-driving car companies, like Waymo or something like that.
Right, yep.
They killed 2 people. How many people did humans kill with their cars in California?
That same day.
Did you know it's illegal to hunt poodles in New York with the Buick?
Yes. I was aware of that when you finished the sentence. But no,
it's a very old joke.
The my point here being that the fact that AI and this software, if we just call it software instead of getting sci-fi with it, the software is better than humans at a lot of things, is going to be used. You've got 2 things happening. One thing that's always been happening, which is the Hollywoodification of cognitive software, right? If you put LLMs in that same category of cognitive software, and then which lends itself to this very polemic discussion. And then the other thing that's happening is, so you've got these cults on both sides that are leaning into the Hollywoodification of cognitive software, people that think it's going to solve all the world's problems, people that think it's going to end the world.
Right.
And now you've got business interests taking advantage of that cult. And that was what this Politico article was about the effective accelerationism guys. I have been watching the commissioned reports that are coming out of like Forrester, Wikibon, Constellation, maybe not Constellation, Gartner, that were dealing with AI safety. and I know who pays these guys, and I know who commissions these reports. You've got IBM and Oracle and large enterprise players that are frankly falling behind ChatGPT and frankly open source movements. People that are just playing around.
Stock has been hammered.
Yeah, and they're paying to have all this propaganda come out there that says, this is going to kill us all because we all watch Terminator.
Look, but this is still the we're probably like every day is just a new day anyway, but like so early into this like AI thing. Just to remember again, I keep talking back about the farming and agricultural. It's like everybody had to do something to do with food production years ago, right? And now 2% of the global population feeds all of us, right? And if you were to say that we're going to regulate who is allowed to have a motorized engine, what would that have done to us as far as progression?
Mass starvation.
Right. And now we've got this new tool, because let's be honest, that's what it is. It's a tool. Software has always been a tool, the free speech that actually enables not just like progress, but specific quantifiable work, as opposed to us individuals who may have forgotten to call that person back, right? You make a process, it's going to be more precise. Well, yeah, precise, maybe not accurate, but it's going to be more precise in its functions. It does what it's supposed to do, and it helps us to do that. AI as a entity, man, I'm not qualified to talk about that. I don't think any of us here are, right?
I feel like I'm qualified to talk about it.
Okay.
I'm an entity.
I still think that it's really just technology that's going to help us get a lot better. And if it turns into something that's more than that, I put that on the same scale of people asking me, it's like, what happens if, the United States would have blah, blah, blah. Should I buy gold? Well, you're going to have bigger problems. You're going to have bigger problems. If you have to carry around a bag full of gold.
Asteroid is coming our way and it's going to wipe out all of human. Like, what should it be up to that point? Should I go into short terms?
Think you should make really good friends with Elon Musk, who might have a starship that we can go off on somewhere.
It's the same question that people ask me, like, well, if quantum computing defeats encryption, what happens to Bitcoin? I'm like,
everything else
what
you
happens
have
to everything?
Yeah, everything. Your bank password is also gone way before that. So I don't know.
Your car, your ring phone,
everything.
Everything's kind of gone from there.
Yeah.
I think it's too much. I think they're making a mistake. I think they're overhyping it. And even if it can do all those things, and as human beings, we're good enough to use it and not disrupt everything else we do. I mean, perfect example. Here's a smaller example of it. Dishwashers. Don't make the joke, Jim. Just move into the
yes.
dishwashers. But also all the automation that came from housewives was supposed to free up the 50s and 60s and 70s housewives. Does anyone feel like there's less work to do? I mean, it takes a while to cook stuff from scratch, clean everything, prep those. That's actually takes some time. Do your laundry, set it out, wring it out. It's not the same as just tossing it into a washer dryer. But then what happened? Everyone feels like they're not doing it. My little brother and sister don't know how to wash dishes by hand, and they were furious that they had to put stuff into this new dishwasher. Did they save any time? Did anything happen from there? I think this is what's going to happen to us. We're supposed to save this free time. We're not planning out anything of the rest we're doing. So I think in people's heads, automation always leads to something better. But if you can automate 90% of your job, why would your boss pay you more than 4 hours a week? A month?
There's still that critical component that person has to do. So they're still going to get paid. And maybe money relativistically is less of a consequence when you've got that much productivity and that much revenue coming in.
Or the company doesn't understand that that's not
what I think
and that's not 90% productivity growth every month.
What I think it will do is you will see the breakup of a lot of bigger companies into much smaller ones that are much more nimble, perhaps.
Yeah. But then why continue to pay them the premiums in their brand? That's what surprises me. What's wrong with people thinking that, this is going to be great for me, but nobody else in the world is going to make any adjustments? Oh, this is great. I can start sending my invoices out for 10 cents instead of $1. And then but I'm still charging the exact. I mean, when you do that to somebody, what do you think is going to happen? It's
margins compress like 39 basis point.
Yeah.
Bitcoin.
Right.
When there's that much spread
Yeah.
see that in the pharmacy benefit management world. We see that in a lot of things, right? It's like, that's a lot. They've been taking way too much. So we're going to have to go ahead and rein that back in. That's what you're going to see with this, margins compress. And then it makes people that are valuable even more valuable.
That's
and
true.
the people that do less will find something else to do.
Or not. There's no guarantee.
Sorry, the internet is going slow. I was trying to pull up your AI story for the week, which is AI not making better decisions than humans, or maybe they are. Maybe this is happening at a lesser frequency than it used to. AI is detaining sex workers at the border, and you may be next.
Isn't that facial recognition that's doing it?
Well, this is your story. Tell me about it.
So I've some friends in Canada who every time they try to travel to the U.S., they're just headhunters. It's not like they're anything, but they're headhunters. They literally are detained like 4, 6, 8, 10 every time they come in. For some reason, everybody can cross except these guys. I mean, no criminal record, nothing wrong. It's just, why do you keep wanting to do business in the United States? Because I make a lot of money as a headhunter.
Mm-hmm.
I got to fly around and meet these people. So I've had to send letters to the government letting them across. And I just started laughing. I was like, when someone does that now, you're like, oh, yeah, they must know you're a bad person. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
But now that it's sex workers, so apparently they're catching OnlyFans people kind of fly into the country to do content. So some folks in Europe and Canada were trying to come in and shoot content in the US, and they're caught and not let in. So you fly all the way here and they're like, no, thank you. And you have to go back. And I just started laughing because what happens the next time any one of your friends and their wives gets pulled over to customs? You can be like, oh man, we know why Sally and Tom. Oh, that is brutal. I know it's a long way to go for the joke, but now you can get that in your head. Next time they go, my flight was delayed.
Yeah, now for sure.
Facial recognition.
I am fascinated. I'm curious. Like when you say they have to go back, what does that mean? They literally have to, like, do they have to buy a ticket and go back, or like they can't get back on that plane? So like, where do they go? What do they do?
Well, no, they're just not allowed to come into the country. They are put back on a plane.
Yeah, you just stay in
You
the
either stop there at the border and can't, because Canada's got very strict things for those, and the U.S. is like they're just not letting you.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny because I just went right through. I remember my wife, the felon, went in. They never bothered her, but that might have been before the records. I'm hoping she visits Canada soon again. Because it's illegal to enter Canada as a felon. So,
but yeah, it's definitely going to it's definitely gonna become problematic. This is basically, the story seems to be about like these little automated kiosks and access to.
I mean, they're chasing OnlyFans people now, but what happens when they start doing everybody at a protest?
Anybody that has a questionable Substack.
Every time you've been on a podcast and they're catching your face from before, but then it doesn't make good sense and does the thing like the Google stuff where it's,
what if somebody
not catching people of certain ethnicities?
What if someone puts
assuming that they all look alike, which happens all the time with it.
I remember that. It was hot. It was so hot. And that tinfoil hat probably saved me from.
Well, I mean, but so to cross the streams and the stories, the deep fake porn stuff that happens, right? Like the AI.
It's got to be. Look, that's good for health reasons, right? Like you don't have to worry about diseases being spread with that.
Well, sure, that's not the direction I was going with that, but correct.
They're gonna sue for.
No, what I was saying is like these like the way that the crypto guys are trying to manufacture felons out of the Secretary of the Treasury or whatever by airdropping them a $10,000 token via their email. You could create an OnlyFans for somebody and deep fake their face onto
one of their filters, and then now they can't
Ooh.
travel, and even the hassle itself will cause such a problem.
Right? Yeah.
Well, it doesn't take much of that at all.
I mean, like, basically, this is where I think law is becoming an impediment to modern life, because you can weaponize these laws so easily. Like, it doesn't even take a devious mind to kind of go, well, if you're gonna be a fascist, I mean, I can just fascist you right back.
Yep. That's fascinating. That's a good one. Wow.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was Not financial advice either, or not life
That was
advice.
also not.
Any that we've run through the show, and we might actually end on time this week, unlike last week. So, is there anything else you guys want to bring up before we?
I was sitting
jet?
in the shade, resting after a particularly painful Brazilian body wax,
Mhm.
and I realized that maybe we should improve our interview techniques here on the Roundtable.
Okay.
Perhaps we could hire an AI to do that.
Now, you'll lead with an opening like that, no matter what you say. You guys are both leaned in. You're like, okay, is it a bad joke? Or is
Connect
it-
these dots,
I was
please.
I could have said anything, and that's the problem with hospice care today. It doesn't- because they're like, wait, what?
You got
You
any
know-
more?
You've got a really good way about doing that, getting people really engaged and then coming up with nothing, going flat. Just turn them around and just send them on their way. And with that in mind, folks,
It's like Chappelle's joke. That
Oh
he's
yeah,
getting
it
flack-
starts with the
flack
important
for.
line.
Talking, no, the one where he talks about meeting Jim Carrey and Norm Macdonald.
Right.
So, like a huge setup, such a good setup for a story and a joke, and then
Yeah.
then nothing.
Mhm. Well, I apologize for today's podcast. You can go back and I push you back into the water. No, I'm sorry. It was actually a good. It was a great show today. I had a lot of good topics, and we'll do it again next week. So come back for that.
Have a great.
Hey, thanks for watching The Merge. We've got a ton more stuff for you to watch on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, everywhere. Check us out.